8 hours by yourself through probably what could be the most boring drive of your entire life. South Dakota is a bit more interesting
Mm-hmm.
than North Dakota. At least there are some hills. There's a really steep one that like,
Well, back to the Grand Tour. We could make a Grand Tour plausible. Well, I mean, aside from the gas, what we do is we pack we might need a bigger vehicle so we can pack a cooler. But ideally, what we do is we camp everywhere, so we never go in a hotel, and we bring enough food for like a week, and then after the end of the week, we find the cheapest grocery store and stock up again.
right.
And then, you go to the grocery store, you fill up on everything you need for the next week or whatever, or however long this is. And as long as you're sleeping in the tent, you don't have to pay for a hotel. And your food bill is only as much as you're willing to spend on bringing stuff. I mean, I think it would be nice, try some different cuisine around the area.
Right.
But, I mean, you don't have to do that every day.
I think me getting a Maverick would be about the only way that'd be feasible.
Yeah.
Because it'll have the space. It still won't be
Well,
anywhere. It still won't be anywhere.
Because see, my car is the best fuel-wise, but it's not very spacious.
Right. The Maverick, we will have oodles amounts of space, like more space than you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we're not doing stargazing, but we're just going on a grand tour, we can pack as much food as we want.
Yeah.
Luxurious camping supplies.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be a lot of room. But, I mean, it's better gas mileage than my truck gets.
Mm-hmm.
But, 25 miles per gallon. 20 miles per gallon is 25 miles per gallon is. I mean, it's still pretty good. It's not.
That's decent, yeah.
Yeah, for as much space as we're gonna get, that's pretty good. I'd say so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you do a grand tour, we go through Wyoming, and then we drive from Wyoming up to Idaho through Oregon. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, you could get crazy, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, we could just say, yeah. Well, no. We would want to go to Wyoming because I think you'd want to see because Yellowstone should be its own trip because there's just too much to do at Yellowstone. Yellowstone is a trip of itself. You could spend several days at Yellowstone.
So here's what we could do for a grand tour. We take I-80. Instead of taking I-80 through Wyoming, we get off on I-76.
Well, no, I was saying we take I-29, we go up to South Dakota, North Dakota, go over to Montana, Idaho, Washington, go south to Oregon, California, and then we take, I'm sure there's interstates that go all the way down to California, all the way down to Arizona, New Mexico, yeah, Texas, and then we take Texas to Louisiana, and then we curve up to Arkansas, Missouri, and then Missouri to Iowa, Nebraska. One big circle. That is the grand tour.
Oh God. We're going to drive pretty much the entire stretch of I-5.
Well, hell, when we do, the day we decide to do the Maine trip, Maine will be a grand tour. Because when you go to Maine, you'll knock off Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. And then since all the states are so close together, you got to go south. And so you hit New Hampshire again, Massachusetts. Why not hit Rhode Island in the process, Connecticut? Then you can go to Long Island, New York. And then you're still semi-close to the interstate. You got to hit up New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. You've already done Pennsylvania. Then you can come down and you can hit Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky. And then probably Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, back home.
Oh my
And then you
god.
make it, and then you make another trip, and then another trip will be to go to Florida, which will be, you go down to Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. Come up to South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and back home.
So, do you want to
I
go?
mean, you could, in theory, do one big trip that knocks out the whole East Coast, but I think it's better to break it up into several.
Yeah.
Specifically because you got national parks you got to see while you're out there. Like,
Right.
there's a lot of national parks, and so
So
you can't just be knocking off states and skipping over the national parks and then have to go back.
So, would you rather drop off a bunch of states or drive through Canada for a while?
So you're saying Maine, and then what? Go up to Quebec?
No. There are 3 paths to get to Moscow, Maine. And I don't know why. I'm assuming, so Google's got...
Oh, does one of them go from Minnesota to Ontario?
What? No. What? No.
No.
Michigan to Toronto.
Oh, you go that way.
So what you do is you take, so in Chicago, you hop on I-94. And you take I-94 up to Michigan. And then you take Michigan into Canada. And you basically scoot your way along the Canadian-U.S. border while remaining in Canada the entire time. And then you basically cross back over at the Canada Maine border. So you cross out like 8 states. But actually what's interesting is what states it has you go through and how close you get to other states. Because the other path, which is actually slightly, so it's a longer distance, but it's a shorter time. It's still 26 hours, but it's the blue option. I'm assuming it's because of the border crossing. That's why it's the blue option. But anyways, I-90 gets stupidly close to the Michigan border. So you might as well get out when you're in Indiana and go have lunch or whatever in Michigan, so you can cross off.
Oh, you can cross off Wisconsin, right? Or is Wisconsin too far?
What? Hell no! You're not freaking. That's probably a 2-hour drive.
Yeah, 2 more. What's 2 more hours off a 24-hour drive? Okay,
26.
What's 2 more hours?
No. Anyways.
What is 2 more hours?
No. That's 2 hours to get there, plus the hour you have to spend there, plus 2 hours back.
What's 5 more hours?
5 more hours. That's a whole day.
Yeah. Please.
That's a whole day. Anyways.
Yeah, please.
As where Michigan is literally just an exit, and then just an exit, and then you spend an hour. So, so then you'll take Indiana. You'll have to drive through the most boring state in the world, Ohio. You'll then cross through Pennsylvania. You'll have to stop in Pennsylvania for an hour. Same with Ohio, obviously, to make it count.
Like stopping everyone for an hour. Well, I mean, I don't know how long it takes to go through Illinois.
Oh, well, I guess it. So does driving across the state count then?
No.
No.
And it's because of the reason that we said earlier. Imagine, because driving from Ohio to Pennsylvania, if you zoom in, there's a little tiny segment that peaks up. Does that count as driving through West Virginia? And I said no.
Right. Well, you're also on this trip, you're going to go through that tiny little speck of Pennsylvania, so you'll want to stop there.
Yeah, and so I'll read our rule again. It was drive an hour into a state. So it's no longer driving across. It's drive an hour into a state, spend an hour in a city, spend an hour in a city, a major city, minimum 5,000 people. You have to be outside during the day. And then my brother was saying doing something symbolic.
So I didn't drive an hour into Minnesota.
But you spent an hour in a city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
So
played
that counts.
soccer for that hour.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have said or. Drive an hour into a state or spend an hour in a city, a major city, minimum 5,000 people, outside during the day and doing something symbolic.
Something symbolic? I don't know what that means.
Well, basically, it's you can't just say um,
No one's. You're not. Listen, you're not going to spend an hour just sitting on your phone.
yeah.
You're not. No, you're not going to drive to a state to sit on your phone, right?
Well,
You're
no,
gonna
that's what I'm saying. That's he's saying. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but yes, that you can't. You have to do something.
like lunch.
Well,
Like I mean, I
or
guess.
like have lunch in a park, go on a hike around this, or go around the city and visit shops around the city. You know,
Yeah.
or
Although.
admire the differences between this state and all the others.
Well, Minnesota looked shockingly similar to North Dakota.
Well, you didn't go very far into Minnesota, too.
I did not. I was literally the the
On the other side of the river.
the furthest I went in was when I went to get gas.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I crossed over. We literally stood on the bank of the river,
Mm-hmm.
and so I've got my picture of Minnesota, which is the part of the river. So,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, that was the requirement. Because something like, because I don't like driving across is hard to justify. Which is why I was just like, yeah, just say drive an hour in, because if you drove an hour in, you spent a solid
truth be
amount of time
told,
there.
an hour into Minnesota from North Dakota will look exactly the same. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if that's the Missouri River Valley at that point.
Mm-hmm.
At where we are, I think it's I think it's part of the Red River Valley. It's so flat and open.
Well, hell, drive 8 hours across Nebraska, and it's the same.
Well, see, but that's because you're still in the. That's because because it follows the valley. This is literally driving across it an hour, and you're still not out of it. It's wide. The Platte's long, but
Yeah.
it's not a very wide valley. You can see from one end to the other. You can't in some parts. You can't see from one end to the other.
Yeah.
It's I mean, we drove from freaking. I mean, driving from Fargo to Grand Forks, nothing changes. There's
Mm-hmm.
no change. We drove an hour to a lake. Nothing. We drove an hour and a half to Devil's Lake. Nothing changed except a lake showed up. There was no
Yeah.
difference, and that's an hour and a half. So in Minnesota, you have to drive a long ways. I still think it counts. I spent an hour in the state, and then I also walked around a Cabela's for the first time ever.
Yeah.
I also got gas. You know, I walked around a few gas stations. I got turned around, and we drove through it a few other times too. But like, those were just we never got out of the car. But this time we got out. We went to we were in a. I want to say it's a state recreation area. It wasn't quite a state park, but it was a state recreation
Mm-hmm.
area, whatever the heck that means. And we got
Yeah.
out. We went to the river. I threw rocks into the river. Like you do. We he posted on his story of $10 and I'll push him in.
Yeah.
And then we played soccer. I was very out of shape and very out of breath. You know, I biffed a lot of balls. It, in my mind, yes, I was like, I'm not very far into Minnesota, but I still spent an hour there. I did something symbolic, you know. I spent the time there, plus I went later on anyways to, you know, walk around, try and find a map. You know, I went through the effort to try and find a map. I'm going to count it. It's up, you know, I'll agree that we shouldn't count Oklahoma, but I do want to count Minnesota.
Yeah.
I would have done more time. It just wasn't permitted. Like, I wanted to drive to find Minneapolis is way further than I thought. Anyways, I wanted to drive further in to do other things, but it just didn't have time. I also wanted to, you know, try and go find a map. But what do you think?
Minneapolis is on like the opposite side of the state.
Yeah, I know. I realized that now. Well, because I was gonna go try and see Outback, but
oh, he lives in Minneapolis.
I don't know if it's I thought it was somewhere around Minneapolis, but I don't know. Point is, what? So, what do you think? What is your opinion on my time in Minnesota?
I don't know. I didn't know. Wasn't there?
Would you?
It sounds like it was fun.
Would you count what I did as going to a state?
It fits our definition, yeah.
Yeah. But you said the drive an hour in, which I did not do.
No, I said an or.
Oh, okay, or.
I said drive an hour in or spend an hour in a major city.
Yeah, and we're in East Grand Forks.
It's not drive an hour in and spend, because for the same reason that, like, visiting West Virginia. I was saying that technically you're in West Virginia. If you drove through that little thing that points up. However, if you need to stop somewhere and spend an hour for it to count, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because just driving through, it's like you're not really visiting the state. However, if it takes you more than an hour, yes, you spent adequate time to consider having visited a part of the state.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at that part of West Virginia, there's straight up like a wildlife management area that you could go. I don't know if you can fish, but like, yeah, you could spend it. You can go hike around that for a considerable amount of time, probably. You know, yeah, sure, you're right on the border, but I mean, it's West Virginia.
But, you know, keep in mind a lot of those states on the East Coast. Well, I guess no, there's probably more on the West Coast. Actually, I was just thinking that, you know, quite a few of them have national parks. So
yeah, so.
Well, also the Appalachian Mountains that run through there too. That'd be cool to see.
So this puts me tied with Kyle. I was already ahead of Phil, but now I'm definitely ahead of you. I don't know how you've skated by and haven't been to as many states as Kyle and I.
Because I haven't been on trips. We, as a family, never took vacations.
True.
So really, the only states that I've been to are the states my brother has been to, but he also did Camp Kentucky, which added 2 extra states.
It's also...
And that's it, 2 extra states.
Yeah. It's also possible he's been to Illinois. We haven't decided. Because
I don't think he's been to Illinois. I'll text him right now.
Because if he's been to Illinois, we're tied. But if he hasn't...
I don't even know why he would have gone to Illinois. He hasn't done anything that involved in going to Chicago.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Where has he been that I haven't been? He's been to Arizona and Florida.
Yeah.
But I've... Wait, am I ahead now? By like a lot then. Because he hasn't been to Kentucky or Indiana.
No.
We know that. And I've been to literally every other state besides Arizona and Florida. Oh, no. It really does come down to Illinois. Because if he's been to Illinois, we're still tied. Never mind. I was doing my math wrong. Sorry. If he's been to Illinois, we're tied. If he hasn't, I'm ahead. So, that is the debate. That is the debate. I love how he was like in that chat.
I don't think he's been to Kansas though.
What? Yes, he has. How has he not been to Kansas?
Why would you? What we when did we as a group go to Kansas?
Well, he never your parents never went to Kansas for anything with you guys?
Oh, I told you we did 5 trips. Okay, 5 trips.
Wait, why has he been to Missouri then?
What?
Has he been to Missouri?
Yeah, that's part of the 5 trips.
Oh, okay.
I said we've done 5 trips. Arizona, Florida, Kansas City, Royals game, and Worlds of Fun. Kansas City, Missouri. So that's Missouri and Iowa. Well, technically you're driving. I don't even know how long you're in Iowa driving, but anyways, that's 3. Then Niobrara, and then Chimney Rock.
It is possible.
That's it. That is all the trips that we have done in the past 25 years as a family. Or 21 years.
You guys, your parents didn't cross over into Kansas at all during that Kansas City trip?
Why would we? We had no reason to. All we did is Worlds of Fun and Royals game, and then we went home. Why would we have drove to Kansas? We had no reason to drive to Kansas.
Fair enough.
I've been to Kansas before because I went to Great Wolf Lodge with some friends.
Right.
For a birthday party. But he was not a part of that. And so I don't know how or why he would have had to go to Kansas.
So I'm trying to think of all times I've been to Kansas. There was a fair down in Kansas City, but I don't remember what side of the river it was on. But I know we crossed over, but I can't remember if we spent any significant time in Kansas. Or if we spent any, I can't remember. I'm not even including Missouri. If we spent time in I don't remember if the fair was in Kansas or if it was in the Missouri side. I'm assuming it's probably on the Missouri side because the Kansas side is trash. I know we did cross both sides, but I can't remember if we did anything significant. But I've also been to Manhattan, Kansas twice. So.
Yeah.
Regardless. Plus our trip. Plus, I'm sure I've been to Kansas for other things at some point in my life, probably. But, oh, so he might not have ever been to Kansas. Make sure you ask him that too.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I don't think he ever has.
Holy crap! Well, if he's never been to Kansas or Illinois, we were tied before I went up north.
Yeah.
But he always said he was ahead of me.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't recall. I don't pay attention to how many states you guys have been to.
Well, frick. If he hasn't been to Kansas or Missouri, Jesus, I'm ahead then by a lot. Jesus.
Like one state.
What? No. If he hasn't been to Missouri or Kansas or Illinois.
No, he's been to Missouri.
Sorry. If he hasn't been to Illinois or Kansas, that still puts me ahead by 3 states?
3?
Yes.
I thought 2.
No, because he has New Mexico and Florida, which I haven't been to.
What? He hasn't been to New Mexico.
Sorry, I meant Arizona. Sorry. Yes, he's
Yeah.
been to Florida and Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay, which cancels out one of my other two, Indiana and Kentucky. But I've still been to
Mm-hmm.
Illinois and Kansas. So, yeah,
Yeah.
two. It's still two. Sorry, I was thinking
So it's
three.
still two.
Yeah.
That's not a huge amount.
Depends on who you ask. It depends on what states you're missing, right? You know, if, let's say you're talking to somebody who's been to all 49 of the lower states, but you've been to all 50, and the only ones they're missing are Alaska and Hawaii, those are kind of hard states to visit. Because you have to fly regardless.
I'm sure there's a cruise.
I'm sure there's a cruise. You know, living in Nebraska though puts us in like the best position to visit all the states. Not the best position to visit the most amount of states without doing that much trying, because obviously if you live
But yeah, you don't have to drive as far each time to go because like someone who lived in Maine, they would have to visit almost all the states to do a California trip.
right. So, but you know, they wouldn't drive to California though. That's impractical. They're going to fly. We have the option to not fly to California.
Well, no, why would they fly if they can visit more states though?
No. Here's
They would take
Here's what I'm trying
they
to
would take a real grand tour.
Here's what I'm trying to say though, right? Somebody living in Connecticut, for example, can cross off a bunch of states without having to go very far at all. But to get to California, they either fly or drive a long distance.
Yeah, the grand tour.
Let's say that they're not going, but regardless of the grand tour, somebody in Nebraska, yes, we have to drive further to rack up as many states as somebody who lives in Connecticut.
Yeah.
But but Maine isn't that much further than California for us. It really, I mean, I have to look at it, but it really isn't. You know. So, yes, they have to, but for someone in Maine, though, it's 2 days all the way across the country, which means it's a 4-day drive there and 4 days back. That's 8 days. You know how many states we could do in 8 days from Nebraska?
We could easily do Maine.
We could go to Maine and come back.
Yeah.
In 8 days. In 8 days, we can go to Maine and back and then be sitting at home sipping coffee. And we can do it in 4. Go to Maine, come back, be back home sipping coffee while they're just getting to California.
It'd be a long drive though, so it's 26-hour drive to Maine. That's driving 2 days, 13 hours each.
Right.
That means that you get to Maine, do hardly anything, and then have to drive back the next day 13 hours. I think 5 is more practical. You can spend a day there.
5 days. That's 10 days then from Maine to California. Like what? Oh, actually 9, because that would be doubling the day you're there. 9 days. Still 5 versus 9. Like, and you're still. It's so. Oh man, you know, we are blessed. I mean, it's so somebody in Connecticut again could hit up a bunch of states like in a weekend, way more than we could in a weekend. But in 4 days,
someone in Connecticut, yeah.
But in 4 days, you know, actually maybe we're comparing it. Maybe the East Coast is the wrong comparison. California is a better comparison. Think about where they have to drive a stupid distance to go anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the state isn't that far across, but you have to go up through the
No,
mountains.
but think about how to drive out of the state. Think about someone living in LA. To drive out of LA, they have to drive the distance that we can drive in 15 minutes takes them like 4 hours.
Exactly. There's that too. So like, even though like, oh, they're in California, even though it's not that far across, the traffic is atrocious.
What takes us 15 minutes to travel takes them like 4 hours.
Yep. We would be halfway across our state by then.
Yeah.
We'd be taking our first piss break.
And they're just leaving their home city.
Yep. And they're just getting outside of LA.
Yeah.
And we would be, I mean, would they have to take the, how's that? Oh my God, California would be like hell for somebody with a small bladder. Because like, you'd be like you'd be like 10, 15 miles from your house. But it took you like 3 hours. But it took you like
I know,
3
they're
hours.
like, I have to go to the bathroom. Yeah,
But
run
but
home and
you've
go.
been on the road for
Yeah,
2
you
hours.
can run home, go to the bathroom, and be back, and I bet you moved like 10 feet.
I mean, you wouldn't leave during rush hour, and obviously, but there are some
No, you drive in the middle of the night.
there's some stipulations and some exaggerations to this, but it's
If you're trying to leave LA, you drive in the middle of the night.
exactly. So
That's what you do.
we don't have to leave if we left in the middle of the night. Well, we can still go further. 'Cause, middle of the night. Well, time to go speeding.
Well, the thing about driving in the middle of the night in our state is that it's kind of in Nebraska is the thing. It's scary because of deer.
Not on the interstate.
What?
You're gonna be on the interstate. You're not gonna be on Highway 2.
There's no deer that cross the interstate ever.
You get in the fast lane, deer aren't gonna make it there.
I suppose. I'm just trying to think. Late at night, like 3 in the morning, when there's no one. Does a deer really care if he's trying to run to the tree over there?
I'd be shocked if you. I don't know how many deer get hit on the interstate. I can't imagine it's that many. I mean, maybe around here I'd be concerned, but out by Grand Island, I'm not concerned anymore.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, but although around here it's, I don't know. I've never been concerned about hitting a deer on the interstate.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things you don't think about because it's so wide.
Yeah.
You got like 2 lanes going each
Plus,
way.
there's usually a fence, like not a barbed wire fence, but a chain link fence.
They can jump pretty high, but yeah, you do make a point.
Yeah, deer isn't.
I mean, I've watched the deer jump from the bottom of the ditch over the fence in our front yard.
What an athlete!
Yeah, they can jump from the bottom of the ditch up and over a 3-foot fence. So I mean, the ditch is like what, another 2 feet? So that's 5 feet.
Right.
Something like that.
What an athlete!
Yeah.
What an athlete! That's all I have to say there. That deer is an athlete. But I don't even know how. Less than these damn trips, but so yeah, that's the last travel trip for a while. I don't think we're doing anything in December, and I guess we're going to the zoo. So look out! I'll probably make a vlog on that. But I didn't. So we didn't get to see Northern Lights. It was too cloudy. I tried out. I just used the regular time lapse mode of my camera. My camera took a tumble off my dash because I had no way to like secure it to my dash, and so it yeah, it took a tumble. I think it's okay. The touch screen doesn't seem to want to touch as easily as it used to, so it may have an issue with that. But depending on whether that app works, which I don't know when I'm going to test that app, but if the app that allows me to turn it, that allows me to actually set however long the time lapse exposures that I want, if it doesn't work, get a new camera anyway. So what's it matter if the touchscreen's broken a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also learned that I'd been shooting at 720p for a lot of stuff, and so everything's going to be upscaled to 1080. But whatever. What was? Oh, so